ask you, you use this word all the time. What is health? In well-being of body. Okay, so and where are the other words this health is used? So river health is an example. Sorry?
The condition of the river.
Yeah, but in other situations where the word health is used. Soil health, okay. Economic health. What else? Environmental health. So the word health gets used in many other situations. So if you want to define health, the state of being free from illness or injury. And so if we do not look after our health, we get sick. We cannot be productive. It costs money to recover. And same, so you have river health, soil health, financial health of country or state, like that. Environmental health. And so health is means whether it's a human body or ecosystem or river or forest, soil, whatever. So we want to be free from any illness or any sort of sickness and injury. So rivers are also living body. You can say that they flow, there's a life in there, and they can get damaged, injured, get sick. And you can see sick rivers, and then you can see dead rivers. So dead river is nothing grows in, no fish, nobody wants to go near, birds don't go there, and it's really sad to see river becoming dead. So very sort of similar idea, human health, river health, and with the river we have this riparian zone, this corridor, these plants and trees, and then in the river you have a small organism, microinvertebrates, fish, bird life, and so on. So when river gets sick, they also get affected, and then it affects the whole river, the surrounding areas, the towns, the city. So take example of the river which flows through this area, Calcutta. Yeah, and if we can improve the health, I think people will be happier to have a look. So in terms of river health, the ability of aquatic ecosystem to support and maintain key ecological processes and community of organisms with a specific species composition, diversity, functional organization. So basically whatever inside the river can live happily, can maintain population, not like one type of organism is more than the others, and so there is imbalance created, and that can affect. So why are the rivers important? They are important for so many things. So rivers could be spiritual place, drinking water, they provide drinking, fishing, sand, agriculture, all those things. So, and they can affect all this if we don't look after, don't understand. So when we talk about water in the landscape, immediately comes to our mind this river, dam, then this, we don't think much about groundwater because it's underground, we don't know, but only when we know the well becomes dry, that means groundwater is not there. So rivers, they play a very important role. So if there are no rivers, no life can sustain, and that's how civilization changed, came and disappeared. So there are so many pressures on the river. So extraction of water and for drinking, for agriculture, and then you get nutrients from STP. So like we saw yesterday, so if you have nutrients and you're discharging or maybe wastewater discharging back into the river, because earlier not many people living in cities, so it was all right because it was economical, just discharge the wastewater and doesn't affect. But when we have so many people, we use so many different things, detergents and this hand wash cream, we take so many medicines, and everything actually get discharged into river through wastewater from individual homes. Then we have industries, and so nutrients and runoff from urban areas. So urban areas contain so many things, agricultural lands, and then people extract things from river, and that also affects the thing. And then we have the environmental flows. So if less water is flowing but with discharging a lot of wastewater, then it makes the water quality can deteriorate quickly. So all these pressures and eventually affect the river, so can make river look very unpleasant, or may have some aquatic plant in the river, and all this apply to lakes as well. So we need to measure. So how do you? One thing is just visual, but visual doesn't help much. Maybe water look clean, but it's still maybe acidic, maybe too many toxics. So there are indices. So a number of things you measure and then bring to one index. And so there are some developed Australias in other countries and probably here as well. And there are guidelines. So if the values are above certain things, and that can help assess river health. And then there are quite elaborate measurements you make, and then you put into some equation or some formula of combination of formulas, and that give you the some index. And the water quality indices as well, so how pure the water is, so chemical and physical parameters. So I think just repeating here, but to cater all these needs, we need healthy river. So we did some study in some peri-urban areas around Sydney, and this applies to here. So as you have more development, then as you develop, these sediments go in the river, then more people come in and then affect the whole river. And also that's where we grow some food, so these things can impact. So to manage river health, we have to measure something. So if like the river we saw yesterday. Now if you look at the river from distance, it looks very good. I said the water is good, but then you need to measure. So that's why we took samples. And samples, we now got pH, EC, and hopefully nitrogen, phosphorus, and all those things. So individually we look, but we still are confused whether this water is good and what is good for what. So whether, say, if I want to swim in that river, is that a good water? Can I just jump in and I will still be healthy or all right, no sickness? And can I drink that water? Or can I touch that water even? So I was in Oklahoma some 15 years ago, and some colleague took me to some nice lake near Stillwater, and there was sign everywhere, do not touch water. And because of the pesticides and some other things used by nearby farms, so water looked all right, but I think the caution was not to drink or not to use that water. So those signs. So we need to have some indicators. So I had one PhD student, and he was doing, so there was a request from the local river authority that we want to know, we get calls from people in the community. They want to ask, is the river good for swimming, or can I go for fishing, or like that. So we don't know what to do. We can't tell. So we took that challenge, say, okay, how can we measure? And how can we measure? So if measurements takes 1 week to find out whether it's good or bad, then people who want to do something tomorrow, it's not good enough. So we need something you can measure quickly and still it's a good thing. And second thing is, if you want to be proactive, means before the problem comes, if we can act beforehand, then it's better, because okay, some things are changing and we need to do something, otherwise the river will be not healthy in next month or next 5 months. So some sort of early warning. So if you know the indicators, what is the value, then you can take some action. So that's also very important, to measure something beforehand. And also we need some sort of frameworks. How do we assess? So everyone know what is a framework. So some sort of set steps, or overall how you're going to do something. So if you are building something, you need to have a framework physically, so that you can put things together. Like also, so if you want to measure river health, you need some sort of steps and basic sort of framework or components that will define everything. So take an example of car, for example. Car has a framework, chassis and all other things. Then you put some other things and it can move, and same thing. And so when we talk about river health, we need to talk about, first thing is social. So what really means to people, river and river health. And then we need to talk about environmental aspect. And then some sort of framework and toolkit. So if you are measuring, we need to go through all this. So community surveys, like so one group doing community survey. So you, it's not very, say if you do some very complicated study, so you measure this, you do this, apply this formula, modeling, but then you come to community survey, it's just asking people. So it looks very simple, but it is actually very complex, because you're talking to people, their complex mind and what they say. So how you conduct survey is very, very useful, because then you understand why are you doing, what are you doing, and what should be done. And have you heard of these key informant interviews? Okay, so one is you just go in the community and you find different people and just survey. Key informant interview is people who really know about what you are researching. So there are select groups and you identify and you talk to them. So that's key informants, and they give you, if you select the right people, they really give you very deeper understanding. And sometimes it's very helpful, because if you want to develop some policy or some sort of strategy to manage something, and if it can take the opinions, ideas and experience of these people, it gives you better path to And then environmental aspects, so you try to measure water quality, and there are about 40-50 things you can measure about water, and there are some agencies which do measure so many things. Now which one are better or important? That's the sometimes question, whether you measure all of them or whether you measure some of them, and which will give you better answer. Also some thing influence another thing. So if you can measure the original, then the other side one means they are influenced by the, like we were talking. So why is pH increasing or decreasing? And we were saying maybe chlorine, for example, or maybe some iron inside or something. So it becomes very complicated. And I think the challenge is how do you work in a way that it gives you the state of river with the least amount of effort. Means instead of measuring 30, 40 parameters or even 10 parameters, you just measure 2 or 3 and you quickly tell, okay, good, bad or worse, and that's all you want to know sometimes. So it's a sort of assessment, and then you so what is the risk, and then we have some strategy. So this is where we did some study. So this is Sydney. So if you look at the map here, and this is New South Wales, Victoria, whole of this Queensland, and this is Western Australia, and then South Australia, Northern Territory. So these are the main states there, and within this is this river called Hawkesbury. So there are mountains here, and that's where the river originates, and then it flows through this path and eventually to the sea. So this is sea here, and this is somewhere near here is Richmond, where I work. So around here, this area, there are dams, housing development, and the sewage treatment plant discharges water, extraction for agriculture and runoff. So all these affects the river, and then people use this river for various things, recreation, for drinking, and so on, and agriculture. So we looked at the understand the meaning of river health, community and key informants perspectives, and then so key informants. So we really interviewed some managers, some community leaders, and some politicians. So 1 hour interview with each. So very long, and you had set questions, and the idea is just to listen and then sort of facilitate the discussion, not discussion, just their views. And so you recorded their voice with their permission, and they said things, and then you analyze. And then we did a community survey, and so it was based on paper or online. And then looked at the looked at the transcript and then analyzed that through a software, and you get some themes out of this. So what did we find? So considerable proportion of participants related river health to its ecological integrity, visual appeal, hydrologic balance, and river's ability to serve the community. So this was the overall sort of message came out. So people want it to be sustainable ecologically, means river can continue in a healthy state, and it should appeal. So if you are passing through the river or just to enjoy walking along the river, it should visually appeal. This was that's the people's idea. And it maintains the hydrologic balance. So there is always some flow people can use. So you maintain the use, extraction, flow, and that sort of thing. And river water with fit for the purpose. So whether you're drinking or using agriculture, for agriculture, fishing, and so on, it's useful for that. So fit for purpose is important. So we don't need high quality water for everything, but if we can maintain the water for what is it needed for, then I think we are maintaining the balance. So I think this is so there are a number of what thing can you do in the river? So we asked that question, and number of people who replied. So boating was very important in people's mind. Swimming and fishing, picnic, and water skiing. So these were the main things. And then nature watching, irrigation, all these were less important. So what it tells you is if you are going to do some action, you need to work with these people. So if the whole idea of this survey was, okay, we want to find out where is the sort of lever you can operate, and then people will work with you. So these were the messages. Okay, so we need to work with these people, get their support, and that will really get things started. And then we asked, what do you think unhealthy river is? So if there is a definition, scientific definition. People say, like as a researcher, we really are very tight with words and give you, this is the definition. Means it's definite. But when you ask people, what is river health? Everyone has their own idea in their mind. And so when we asked that question, the answer was decline in biota. Biota means whatever in the river. If they decline, it's a problem. And water color was another thing. So if it is looking muddy, different color, then there is a problem. So people have their own sort of idea, and nothing wrong with that. And if you see rubbish in the river, there is a problem, unhealthy river. And if there are weeds growing, and then surface pollutant, then low flow in the river, also people thought there is a sign of unhealthy river or something going wrong. And the thing we measure was the water quality, which came 6th, 7th. So, and then water smelly, odor, algae in the water, and something wrong with the banks of the river. And so again, so the idea is not necessarily something you measure and that will be a good answer. But there are other indirect answers which can help you assess the river health. And what we found is you can measure all the water quality parameters and have an index. But a really good index is whether the fish is healthy and living there. It's a very good indicator because it tells about the dissolved oxygen, it tells about the nutrient levels, and also flow of the water and whether you have maintained the systems. So fish are very indirect way of knowing the river is healthy or not. So for example, if I ask one of you, how are you, and you come with a smile, and I don't have to measure the temperature and blood pressure, anything, but if you look happy, and then I can say you're healthy without investigating a lot of things. And that's what we need to do. So if we don't have everything we can measure, but if we can find some indirect way of measuring, assessing, and it's nothing, it's also science. So there is a thing called indigenous knowledge, or people's, and there's a now very popular thing, it's everywhere, citizen science. So local, these grassroots people doing measurements and then making sense of what to do. So whether it's a developed country, developing country, everywhere there are limitations of funds. But if people can measure things, observe things, then you have, we can develop policies, and it's a science. That's what we have been doing in this MARVI project in groundwater. So we engage people, they are measuring, they are developing their own ideas. So some things like this, we need to involve people, and to involve people we need to understand what really they are thinking and how do they perceive things, and what actions should be taken. So if you ask a policymaker or government engineer or director, manager, they have their own ideas. Okay, you do this, and that will fix the problem. But people have their own ideas. So this is what came out. So overwhelmingly, they said community awareness and education. So if you want to improve something, you really create awareness in the people and educate people what they should do, what they should help others to do. And then next thing came was rules, regulations, policies, fines. This might help. So once you educated people, hopefully quite a large number of people will be okay. And then you need some rules, regulation, improve catchment health. This is another way. And manage runoff, regulate flow, and improve the quality of STPs, and manage recreational activities, and then other things. So last thing was funding for research, more or less. This is what people think. And if we do the survey here also, I suspect we'll hear similar thing. Because sometimes we think people, we are scientists or we have master's degree, PhD, so we know everything, but not really. The people have, because they are unbiased, we are biased because we have been taught this is water quality, this is how you measure, and so on. But they don't have that bias. They say, okay, this is what it means to me. So unhealthy river means these are the problems. So we analyzed, so we started the science aspect also. So we analyzed water quality data from Sydney Catchment Authorities measured between 1985 and 2008. So nearly 35 years of data. And we also looked at the fisheries data and did some statistical analysis of the data. And so there were 35 different parameters. And so we wanted to find out which parameters are really, really important and still predict the health of the river. So this is, for example, nitrate, and it's a chlorophyll values, chlorophyll A. And so this is how they varied from in different places along the river. So we had 40 variables. So you don't have to go through, but these are things, most of these things are measured by, in this case, Sydney Catchment Authority. And what we found was these were the important variables. rest can be ignored. So they tell variation in the river sort of quality, water quality, river health. So it's pH, turbidity, dissolved oxygen, dissolved biochemical oxygen demand, enterococci, E. coli, and so on. So these were the variables. So also we further looked at this. So these affect the anaerobic conditions. So when too many oxygen is organic matter, then oxygen demand, oxygen is reduced, and this becomes important. And then this tells about microbial quality, and this tell about the eutrophication. So eutrophication is when too much nutrients in water, and then these affect the salinity aspect. So after further analysis, we found that if we know the if you want to find out whether it's going to risk the eutrophication of water, so if you can measure dissolved oxygen, temperature, and turbidity, and then that will give you warning that you are going to have a risk of eutrophication. So and all three can be measured very quickly. So you go there, and just there are probes available which will measure all three. So temperature, turbidity, and dissolved oxygen. And the microbial risk, so if you know the dissolved oxygen and turbidity, that will tell whether there is some other problem. So basically from 35 to 40 variables we reduced to this. So if we can measure this, we can tell about the river condition, what is happening, what's going to happen, so whether we need to start working something. So then we came up with a framework. So basically understand. So if you are in a new area, so understand first thing. So understand about what is the human impact of the system there, and then understand who are the stakeholders, so farmer, community, and various other groups, industry, and so on. And then you look at if you are lucky, and if you have some historical records about water quality, then you look at them and analyze. And then work out the key indicators. So what will work here in terms of what you know, what are the health, and then develop some tool to predict. And if what you develop that, like those equations I showed before, if that works and they can predict, help you understand all this, that means you have done good job, and then apply, and then take action, management action, and advice. So advisory could be farmer, could be community, or industry, and so on. So this is some sort of framework. So it really guides you to, if you are in a new area and you have been made in charge of managing this river and look after, so you try to do this. So what we found through this work is the true meaning of health is diverse and complex, not like some definition in a textbook and saying you measure this and that will solve the problem. The river values of community are mostly associated with recreational and leisure activities. So that's the case in Australia, but here also maybe spiritual values, maybe some economic values more important. So okay, we want good quality water, so that we have better um, lifestyle or livelihood. And community's meaning of river health included explanations that were simple and used everyday words, whereas we used complex words. And those words integrated number of perspectives. So if you say, if river is looking clean and not smelly, I think it takes into account so many things. And this has been lacking. So the experts and the government agencies, they rely on just the science part. Okay, this is, we are telling you this. But then if we have simple explanation, simple definition, then it can help solve the problem. And also we found that the age, gender, distance they live, that didn't affect the meaning of river health. So if you are near the river, you may have some different perception value than someone living far away. But in terms of the meaning of river health, people have that level of experience thinking about river health. And also we've concluded that you don't have to measure lots of parameters. If we can identify what is important and still integrate those few parameters, 2, 3, 4, integrates all other things. And I think always we should think if we are trying to be too precise, say second decimal point or something, making unnecessarily bigger, it's not going to help. It's not going to improve your decision. So if you have simple thing, then the chances are it will be accepted, it will be useful. And that's also in the case of river health assessment. So I think just over here. So what I'm trying to say is, if we want to manage water in the landscape, so first thing we need to do is managing river. Because in India, I will show you some other slides. So we have so many rivers, and most of them are in not good shape, except say if you are in Haridwar and above that, rivers are really good. But as soon as come down, they have been polluted, and that's really tells us how much we respect rivers. Because once rivers are lost, then our whole sort of day-to-day life. Because now you see, people are having, I don't know, I can't tell, but it's just perception, more cancer, for example, more other disease. And my sort of thinking is, one of the things is water. So what we drink, what water the people use to irrigate crop or produce something, and that's really affecting. So rivers are our future, and I think the government cleaning Ganga, I think it's a really positive. It will take a long time because we have been polluting, injuring that river for a long time, and so it will take time, but if it is clean, and I think that will be a pride moment. So any question on what we talked, or have you got any experience or thought about river health? You must have some sort of thinking. Yeah.
I have one question.
Yeah.
So you told that by seeing the fish, we can understand or guess what is the health of rivers.
Yeah.
So what is the meaning of fish? By seeing the fish, or it's a population, it's a type of fish, or what means?
Yeah. So I think
So that
yeah, human aspect you're saying.
yes, if river health, we want to say guess by fish,
Yeah. Yeah.
fish in the river.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
So it's a population or variety of fish, or what?
So first is the population.
Population,
Because,
number of fish.
There is certain, if this river is healthy, there is certain level of fish, the number of fish
Per unit area.
per unit area, per unit length of the river.
Length of the river.
And so, but if as soon as there is more nutrients or more salt or more something, then fish population starts declining. Fish don't breed, for example. So actually, there was so we were working with one lady who was in fisheries. She's actually a business person. So what her thinking was, so fish also have that sort of thinking, you can say thinking inverted commas, that if they think that their offspring won't live longer, means that the river is not healthy, they start not producing themselves, not breeding. And nature also has its control, so the fish population will decline, and then other things will come in. The other this aquatic organism which can survive in that, they take over. So fish was a really good indicator. So if you are monitoring fish in river, the population, and the second thing is the health of the fish. So fish also to a point they can keep growing, but then say for example if you have more of some heavy metals, so they will accumulate in the fish body, and so that can tell you something going wrong. So they don't die, they still breed, they still survive, but they are sort of make of change. So it integrates dissolved oxygen, it take into account pH. So most living things, whether you take plant or human or fish or animal, this 6.5 to 8.5, they grow very well. Like plants also, if pH is below 6.5, 6, they don't grow. There is certain pH you require in your head also, in the scalp. The hair won't grow. You have to maintain pH. And so nature has sort of balanced everything.
We can say in short that it's a diversity, type of fish,
Yeah.
population,
Yeah.
in flora and fauna balance it is required for
That's
healthy.
right. So there's thing called microinvertebrates. So they also are really good indicator along with fish. So you don't have to measure water quality. If you don't measure water quality, that's fine. But ultimately, if the fish is living happily, then we have good water quality and river is healthy. So I think that's how we should think about things. So if you are growing crop, particular crop, so ultimately if you are getting good yield, then your management is good, water management, the plants are looking healthy and everything, then I think you are doing good. It's like that.
Second, I have in conclusion you told that population, distance of fish.
Yeah.
These conditions have no impact on river health. Or
No, meaning of river health. So community, whether you are male or female, whether you are young or old or middle aged, yeah, children. So
and distance.
yeah, river didn't have any impact on the meaning of river health. What they think, what is river health?
But that could be for Australia. For
Yeah,
India, it may be
that's right. Yeah. So India, I think is whether you live in a city or village, whether you live whether you are rich or poor, you develop certain concept. So everyone, but I think it will be good to find out. I think it could be a good study by somebody here, that what is the community's meaning of river health.
More population near the river.
Yeah.
Means more pollutants they are contributing to it.
Contributing, but also at the same time, they might be thinking they value more river because they are close to the river. And if they're benefiting, then say, okay, no, we need to protect, or something needs to be done. Somebody 200 kilometers away, and somebody only 5 kilometers away. So 5 kilometers away, if there is some sort of initiative that we want to help this river, I think they will be more interested. Okay, this is a good thing. It's like some factory coming near your village. You will think if it is good thing coming, then okay, support. It's a really kushali. I think it will be more jobs and more this.
But maybe means conditions may be different for different locations.
That's right. Yeah.
We need to
Find out. Yeah. So I think if you want to manage water, we have to not physical resource management. It should be management from all other ideas. So that's the next lecture I want to talk, integration of various things. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So we can not monitor the river easily. And a plan in the level.
So if I understood correctly, so Australia population is less, and so it's easy to monitor. In India, high population, it's not easy to monitor. Monitor, it depends what do you want to monitor. So I think it should be easier here because more people, I think how we can mobilize those people to monitor. So in Australia, in Sydney, there was a program called Stream Watch. So it was a community-driven approach. So all the schools were given as a kit. So there is a kit with the pH measurement thing, some strips to measure nitrogen, phosphorus. So every week, some class will go to, if you are near a river, they will go there, monitor, and then report the value to a central place. So that went for 15-20 years, large amount of data. But the data was not as important as the engagement. So you're taking, say, 10-year-old, 15-year-old to a river, they're taking sample and coming back, and so the river became sort of part of their thinking, and it got internalized, that how important the river is. So that part, so I think here also, if we motivate people, okay, you have this dam here or lake here, and maybe not every week, maybe every month, so 12 times a year you go have a sample, and then you create some sort of understanding. Even I was thinking IIT could here, campus can do. Yeah. So I think the aim should be to reduce the water use by half in next 10 years, something like that. And so you have all the water need is harvested from here, so you don't have to rely on the river water. And that I think it's possible, because if you look at the total area, how many 2,000 acres, and if you have 1200 millimeter rainfall, and if you capture all this through surface groundwater, I think there's enough for whole year. And then that river water can still flow and maintain the environment, and can be used by some others if there is water.
So is the same with lake water?
Sorry?
Is this the same with
Yeah, yeah. So lake health, I think, it's the only difference is the water is not flowing, but otherwise it's the same thing.
Sir, but the river in India usually they use for the rituals and major part is for the agricultural
Yeah,
reason.
yeah.
So when the agricultural or irrigation which is happening by the side or towards the banks of the rivers and all those things, there is more of pesticides which are being used.
Yeah.
And usually what will happen during the rainy season or so, if the river level get increased, it flows towards your agricultural field. So
Yeah.
the pesticides gets into the river water, and that can also create a lot of unhealthy conditions for the aquatic life also, and even for the human beings who are consuming that part.
Yeah, yeah.
So that is a major part in India.
Yeah.
What will be like? There should be some buffer zones that should be given towards the river, so
Yeah.
that they should not even have the irrigation place.
Yeah.
Now, what we are seeing in India, overall India, like rivers are getting dry.
Yeah.
And during the dry season or in the summer season, what they will do, even they will cultivate into the river
Yeah.
ocean also,
Yeah.
river beds also. So that is also creating a lot of, unhealthy condition for the river.
Yeah, yeah. It's a serious problem. So you're cultivating, so you're using fertilizer, pesticides there. So some of it will stay there. And then on the sides, we use heavily pesticides, insecticides. So I think we need to we need to reduce. So better agricultural practices where you are more organic or grow crops in that way that is less. And also there is pressure, let's say, if you don't use pesticides and still produce like cucumber, tomato, so they won't look very good. But they are still good. So I think we need to change our thinking. So the appearance shouldn't matter. It should be how it is produced and whether healthy or not. So that again is community education. So if every people start demanding, say, oh, don't mind, okay, there is one seller, the tomato or something doesn't look very attractive, but it's good. The other one, then eventually the other person, if they sell less, they will go to the without pesticides, and then less going into the water body. So these are small things need to change, and then I think the overall change comes. So in my mind, I think after what we have done in this study in Australia and some experience here in India and other places, river is the first port of call. So if our rivers can be healthy, then it will be good. Sorry. So if our rivers are healthy, and I think the other things will follow.
Sustainable and eco-friendly industrial production. So there the spiritual value of Ganga is related to the place. Like at Harkipadi they think that Ganga should be pure and everything, but they also dump the industrial waste in Ganga at other places.
Yes.
So the spiritual value is related to the place, not the river.
Yeah.
For people. So that attitude has to change.
Change, that's right. Yeah. I think if that changes, then things will be different.
Yeah.
I think just more respect for water. Okay, so water is, we say water is, I think somebody said water is life, and water is life. So I think we should respect as a life. And life, not just for human beings, it's for animals, for plants, and just whole environment, ecosystem. Thank you very much.
extract out of this book. Otherwise,
Just
everybody-
give a few minutes of summary. What is we still remember after
I
that.
have another book for you. This is for Sundarban, fiction related. Yes? No, this is Amitabh Ghosh. This book is for you, remembering our Sundarban.
You sure?
I have written one of sentences. Yes.
So, thank you. So,
Only for remember our Sundarban.
yeah.
We have to do something for the